Thanks, Priscilla. CEO. I was really enjoying that for a moment. So what I'm going to do tonight is aim to go through 100,000 years of human history and then 100 years into the future as well, and see if we can draw any lessons for the future of work, any lessons for today. So I've got 20 minutes, 100,000 years, 20 minutes. Let's start now. So let's go back. 100,000 years ago, we were all penned into a relatively small area of Africa, and we were hunter-gatherers. We wandered around finding food and finding the things that we needed to keep us going. And we've always used, even 100,000 years ago, we've always used technology, we've always used tools to help us do that. So, we started with stuff like the spear, which helped us hunt wild animals, and we moved on to kind of much more advanced technology. So, a few tens of thousands of years later, we invented the wheel and photographed it against this kind of marvelous backdrop here. So technology, we've been using technology for a long time, and it's helped us, first of all, hunting and gathering, and then when we settled down and started growing our own food, it helped us to be good farmers and agriculturalists. But technology really took off when we got to the first industrial revolution, when we kind of built this thing. This is the steam engine. And this completely changed the way that we worked. It allowed us, for the first time, to bring together people in factories and power them using steam engines and begin to invent more technology like cotton looms. And we really began to automate our labor. That's what the first industrial revolution was all about. It was about automating labor. And the second industrial revolution really capitalized on that process. So in the second industrial revolution, we invented this thing. This is the internal combustion engine, and this thing, which is the electric motor. And put together, we began to build machines that took away a lot of the laboring work that we'd previously done. And they began to do that to an unprecedented degree in human history. And there's a great way of thinking about how much automation these kind of things caused. Anyone know what this is? Has anyone been there? Yeah? And shout it out, go on. It's the pyramids at Giza. And the one in the middle is Khufu's pyramid. This is the Great Pyramid at Giza. And it was built just over 4,000 years ago. And it's about 150 meters tall. And for nearly 4,000 years, it was the tallest building on Earth. It was only, I think, in 1300, when we built Lincoln Cathedral, that someone built something bigger than that. So it was built in around about 2,500 BCE, and it required a hell of a lot of people to build it. We've made some estimates of how many, and this is the number of people historians think it took to build that enormous pyramid in the center of those pyramids at Giza. So if you add all this together, we think that it took 134,000 person years to build that pyramid. So that's the other way of thinking about that is if you had 1,000 people, it would take them 134 years to build. It took a hell of a long time, which is not surprising given the size of that pyramid. Now then, someone then calculated in 2000, so 4,500 years later, how long it would take to build the same pyramid, but this time using the tools that we'd built in the first and second industrial revolution. Anyone want to have a guess? 134,000 is what it took 4,500 years ago. Any idea now in years how long it would take? 80,000? 20? Any advance? 1 year? No. 80,000 was very, very close. Sorry, it wasn't close at all. If you'd said 8,000, it would have been absolutely fantastic. It's not. Take about 7,500 person years. So it's a hell of a lot quicker, but it would still take you quite a long time. And basically, if you look at it in kind of tech speak, you've had an 18x performance improvement using tools that automate people's labor from the first and second industrial revolution. But the revolutions didn't stop. We got the third revolution. That was the one based initially on the transistor, and then on the silicon chip, many transistors on one piece of silicon. And that began to produce interesting tools that could drive automation even further. Now, you remember we've begun to automate labor, so we can do lots more labor now with our new machines. So we invented a new thing called the white-collar worker. And this is the person, actually this is most of us today, this is the person who managed initially all of the labor. And what we've done now is we have these people using technology to automate labor. So that's pretty much where we are today. And if you look at what that's meant for factories, then this is the kind of picture that you get today. This is a car factory. There's nobody there. There's a great joke about a modern British factory. It goes like this: how many people do you need to run a modern factory? And the answer is 2, a man and a dog. The man's job is to feed the dog, and the dog's got to keep the man away from the robots. And that's what it takes to run a factory these days. So we've seen that these tools developed in the first and second industrial revolution, combined with the software, and the third is more or less automating completely manual labor. And we're seeing now the fourth industrial revolution, where we're beginning to see smart technology, artificial intelligence in particular, and we're beginning to see the impact on jobs that hitherto have been very manual. So I'm going to show you a video now. It's part of a BBC report, and it covers the latest Ocado warehouse. So here we go.
This warehouse is stuffed full of algorithms and machine learning that are controlling what are 8,000 of these boxes typically on the move at any one time. It's like a massive traffic management problem that our systems are solving on a daily basis. And Andover takes that automation to another level. As you can say, instead of all of this conveyor and cranes and big machines like we have around me here, in that warehouse we have swarms of robots collaborating with one another to collect customer groceries and bring them to the point where they're picked. And that's when this solution will join with that to actually make the whole process automated from beginning to end.
So that's today, and if you've seen the videos of the Amazon warehouses, you'll see all of these robots shuttling around the floor, bringing stuff to people. There is still a small number of people there, but basically the whole thing is becoming automated. And that process will continue over the next few years, particularly with these things. This is an autonomous car, and we're going to see autonomous cars, autonomous trucks, which will begin to drive stuff around once they leave the factory gates. And then for the places you can't go with trucks or cars, we're already seeing delivery drones, live services of delivery drones, not in the UK at the moment, but in Switzerland and Germany. You can now, as a consumer, you can send stuff by drones for whatever reason. I'm not quite sure why you want to do it, but you can do it anyway. So this is what's happening when you bring all of this technology to labouring jobs. So I guess we should ask ourselves the question, what's the future for labouring jobs given all of this technology? And the quick answer, there is no future for labouring jobs. Around about the end of this century, basically most labour, most stuff that requires mechanical labour will be done by smart machines. There will still be a few people, I think, who will do things as a hobby. You know, maybe people will still dig their gardens as a bit of a hobby, but they won't need to. At the moment, if I want to go and buy, I can go and buy a hand-frame loomed jumper if I want. But I'm basically buying it for reasons of heritage, and I'm making it because I want a hobby, not because I'm being economically productive. So I'm reasonably happy to predict that by the end of this century, most labouring jobs will cease to exist. That probably doesn't worry us too much, does it? Because most of us, I imagine, just looking at you, you don't look like labourers to me. So I guess we also then need to think about what's the future of white-collar jobs. So what's the future of our jobs? And we already have part of the answer, because we've talked about artificial intelligence and the way that it's been used to automate labouring jobs. And artificial intelligence is going to be the big thing that is going to automate our jobs. But it's not just the tech, the kit, the AI that's important to automating our jobs. It's also the volume of data that we now have to help train that AI. So if we go and look at our history again, this is a diagram which talks about the volume of data, the volume of information that the human race has created. Starts on the left-hand side at the beginning of history, about 100,000 years ago, and it goes on till 2003. If you think about all of the information the human race collected between the start of time and 2003, it was about, very roughly, 5 billion gigabytes. So a memory stick will hold about 5 gigabytes, so it's about 5 million memory sticks. And that's everything from the first cave paintings of the hunter-gatherers, all the way through the first writing, the first books, paintings, movies, songs on the radio, everything ever published in an office, all of human information, from the start of history to 2003, would be about 5 billion gigabytes. Okay? How long do you think it takes to produce 5 billion gigabytes now, today? How long does it take? A day? 6 months, a year, day, 5 months, an hour? 5 minutes is pretty close, 10 minutes. And actually, that's last year's statistics, so it's probably a little bit quicker than that now. All of this data, every time you use one of these things, it throws off a massive amount of data, which all goes back to Apple or Google or wherever it happens to be. And all of that data allows us to train AI in a way that's going to replace many of our jobs. So let me give you an example. So the next video is how EY has been doing that to get rid of all of our humble tax consultants. Here we go. Do you like the menacing music? It's kind of good, isn't it? Jobs feel safe with this kind of music.
Can disrupting the way we work provide better solutions for our clients? EY Tax says it's time to embrace a digital future.
In our capital allowances work, we analyse large volumes of construction and fixed asset cost data to assign the correct tax treatment. This involves an understanding of tax legislation, complex case law, and also construction terminology. When doing this work, we need to be consistent, accurate, and efficient, which is a challenge when we're looking at thousands of lines of cost data. There are already applications out there in which you can build rules to analyse data, but we wondered whether there was a way of capturing all those years of learning. The art of the possible in this case turned out to be groundbreaking. We used the IP contained in thousands of capital allowances analysis and used artificial intelligence to capture that knowledge. The resulting tool is called CART.
CART can process information at lightning speed, but what is even more remarkable is its ability to learn. CART uses artificial intelligence to learn the relationship between the text descriptions and the corresponding tax treatment. The more learning data it is fed, the better it gets. This means that it can learn particular terminology used by clients, becoming ever more accurate. Here's how it works. The raw data originates from our clients' accounting systems or from external cost consultants and is fed into our capital allowances template. This is then uploaded into CART, which predicts the tax treatment based on what it's learned from its training bank of data. This takes a matter of seconds. The output is then downloaded and CART will provide a probability score of how confident it is that it has the right answer, allowing a focused review. With its cognitive capabilities, the tool will then allow, but track, when there has been a manual override on the tax code which the tool has assigned it. Once the data has been reviewed, corrected and signed off, it can become part of the training data, ensuring increased accuracy next time. The tool can also overlay additional rules when processing data, which allows it to deal with legislation changes and what-if scenarios. This level of flexibility ensures it remains relevant in the future.
We're using CART with clients that have manual-intensive in-house processes or that have historically outsourced capital allowances work to third parties. In a recent example, a manual exercise that previously took 15 hours was reduced to 3 seconds.
So let me just pause it there. Okay, so it takes a little while to come to the punchline, but that was the punchline. 15 hours to 3 seconds. And it does that, as we've said, through the combination of smart AI, smart technology, but all of that data. You can't build that without having the data from all the projects that you did manually beforehand. So the important thing about it is the scale of automation. If you remember, 18 times was the scale of automation for building the machines, rebuilding the pyramids. But if you do the maths with CART, that's the scale of automation. It is 1,800 times faster than a human being. Now, CART is actually last year's tool. We've built things now that will deal with much more complex tax jobs than capital allowances tax. That's relatively straightforward. But they're still showing that 1,800x improvement in volume and speed. And I guess what I would say then for all of us, if we're doing a repetitive job, because that's what tax computation is, it's a repetitive job, then this kind of technology is going to produce that kind of productivity improvement in your job over the next few years. It's just a matter of time. So if you want an image of your job in the future, then this next one is probably what you should be thinking of. Actually, it's not that, but you have to have a Donald Trump. You have to have a Donald Trump picture somewhere. There's a law now which says that you do. Actually, that's more the bit. You're probably going to be working with a piece of AI. It won't look like that. It'll actually look like, you know, the laptop here. But your job as a professional now is that your work will be augmented by something that's going to do all of those repetitive things very, very quickly. So that's the future of the professions. That's the future of the white-collar job for the next 10, 20, 30, maybe 50 years. At some point, reasonably soon, and probably before the end of the century, though, even the things that you do today with that smart piece of AI are going to get done by AI as well. If we eventually succeed in building general AI, then actually you may find that machines take over pretty much all white-collar jobs, maybe apart from the ones that rely on traits which are perhaps uniquely human. So maybe caring, acting, being an artist, being a counselor, being a clinical psychologist. You know, maybe those jobs will survive for quite a bit longer. But all of the routine jobs, the marketing, the accountancy, the architect jobs, my bet is, first of all, they'll be augmented by technology and then replaced. And maybe there are some people who think even these jobs eventually will go. And even the very empathetic, very human jobs can eventually be replaced by really good, broad artificial intelligence, in which case that's the future of work that we've got to look forward to. Actually, it doesn't look too bad for me, as long as there's a good kind of, as long as I do have enough income to actually move out of Hackney and go and live on that beach. And if you're really interested in not so much the next 30, 40, 50 years, but the next 10,000 years, then this is the book to read. This is by a professor at MIT, a guy called Max Tegmark. And he's actually assumed we now do live in a world where we have really smart general AI, super intelligent AI, that's actually much more intelligent than any of us. And he's had an attempt at figuring out the next 10,000 years of human history. I'm not going to cover that, but if you're interested, it's a very gripping and sometimes quite worrying read. So anyway, that was all of human history, 100,000 years, and maybe 20, 30, 40 years into the future. What lessons would I draw from all of that for us today? The first one's this. This is really going to change over the next 10 years. A lot of people, when I stand here and say this, they nod, but you can tell what they're thinking. What they're thinking is, people have said this before. They said email would produce the paperless office. They've said that ERP systems would change the way they work. And you know what? All this AI, it's going to be like that. It's not really going to change the world very much. It's just going to change it a little bit. If that's what you're thinking, you're welcome to your opinion, and you're wrong. This really will fundamentally make as big a change to our work, probably in the next 10, 20, 30 years, as work has changed over the last 200. And it's changed a hell of a lot over the last 200 years. Now, if you don't believe that, then your organization, and possibly you in your career, will have huge amounts of trouble over the next 20 years. So my first piece of advice is, I mean, don't just believe me. Go and do the reading. Go and do the research. But if your organization is going to survive and prosper in the next 10 years, the next 20 years, you need to believe that. Now, if you do believe that, the next thing to do is to be Netflix, not Kodak. For those of you under the age of 30, which is quite a lot of you here tonight, Kodak were a company that used to make this thing called film. Now film, you used to have to put film in something a bit like one of these in order to take pictures. And they were an enormously successful company. They were the most successful filmmakers in the world. The thing that most people don't know is they invented, basically, digital photography. They were pretty much the first people to produce a viable digital camera. And they went out of business a few years later because they didn't develop that digital camera. They didn't think anybody wanted to buy one. And anyway, they realized that if these things got popular, it would destroy their enormously successful money-making business. So they didn't develop it, other people did, and the rest is history. Kodak went bust. Well, they came back about a month ago making blockchain-based tokens for photographers. Oh, that's very weird. Netflix, on the other hand, does anyone know what Netflix originally did when they started? What did they do? DVDs by mail. So Netflix's original business was, you want a DVD to watch at home, we'll send you one through the post. And somebody at Netflix said, hang on a second, have you noticed this? It's possible now to stream movies and TV programs to your laptop. And they had a look at this, and they thought, yeah, it is. And they were willing to take the risk of destroying their existing very profitable business of selling DVDs through the post to create a streaming service. And the kind of rest is history. I think Netflix is currently worth around about $30 billion. And that all stemmed from a DVD business, which they destroyed in order to create that new $30 billion business. There will come a point, possibly, for one of your organizations, where you see the future of the organization. For EY, it was with that cart tool. That cart tool is going to replace all of our simple tax processing, which is currently done by humans, which we make a hell of a lot of money from. The question for EY is, do we have the courage to destroy our existing business and replace it with that new business before somebody else does? So in other words, for us, the question is, do we have the courage to be Netflix, not Kodak? Time will tell. The third one, when one of my team saw this today, she said, oh, you're going to talk to them about sex bots. I'm not. I'm not. We get very frightened, and the press encourages us to be very frightened about the revolution, the robot revolution. Robots are coming for your jobs. They're going to replace the jobs of my tax consultants. When we gave them the cart tool, when we gave them this thing that took 15 hours of their work and did it in 3 seconds, we were very worried about it. Their reaction was great. Do you think we enjoyed going through a 4,000-line spreadsheet, line by line? Do you think that was really good fun for us? Is what they said to us. Actually, used correctly, these tools, they can augment what you do. They can allow you to do the things that you enjoy doing. Our people enjoy talking to their clients. They enjoy figuring out exactly how to format a tax problem. And then they enjoy giving the hard work to the machine. And that's going to be true for a lot of this AI if it's introduced in the right way. And that's my final point, which is there are many ways the future can play out with all of this smart technology. Now, there are the kind of the robot Armageddon scenarios where we're all thrown out of business by robots. A very small number of people, mostly from Silicon Valley, make very large amounts of money and the rest of us live in poverty. That's one scenario. But there are other scenarios too, where we use the enormous wealth that can be created by these tools for the benefit of all of our society. There are scenarios where the information that the big tech companies gather on us can be used to basically allow us to kind of live in some sort of 1984-style totalitarian state where our every movement is tracked, our every thought is tracked, and our freedom of movement and our free will is minimized. That's one scenario. Or we can use all of these things for good. We can use all of this information to spot people with diseases before they know they've got them. We can use them to spot mental health problems before anyone's aware of them. All of these technologies can be used in very different ways. You can create utopia, you can create a robot nightmare. What will determine how that works is us. So we need to get involved in all of this, not just in work, actually, but in society as a whole. If we want things to play out well, one of the great things about living in a democracy is we can probably engineer that, but only if we get involved. So that's my fourth thing, is to say get involved. I think I've hit the end of my time. So I'm going to hand over to Priscilla, aren't I, again? I'll be back to answer questions a little bit later. Thank you very much.